Please subscribe, like and share our videos. Exclusive content brought to you here on Latif Yahia's channel only. Latif Yahia has asserted his rights under the Copyright, Designs, and Patents Act, 1988 to be identified as the author of this work. This book is sold subject to the condition that it shall not, by way of trade or otherwise, be left, resold, hired out, or otherwise circulated without the author's prior consent in any form of binding or cover other than that in which it is published and without a similar condition including this condition being imposed on the subsequent purchaser. Chapter 4. Double Trouble? Our car journey lasts only 15 minutes. One of the first things I see clearly is the family gate. Our 4-car convoy slows as we bump over the tac-tac security rails. When the Republican guards with Kalashnikovs recognize Uday's convoy approaching, they just wave us through and salute. With me in the car are my 2 guards and the chauffeur who collected me from headquarters what seems like a very long week ago. Uday is in one of the other Mercedes. He wouldn't want to sit in the same car as me in my stinking uniform. I don't blame him and I sympathize with his car valet. Once through the gate, we turn left down an avenue and, after a kilometer or so, turn off towards Project Number 7, one of Uday's many private residences. I feel hollow inside. Burned out and sold. It all seems like a film I've been cast in by chance. I don't really know what's happening, but I do know I've consented to be Uday's fide and I've therefore sold myself and my soul to the most weird and repellent person I've ever met, the devil incarnate. When I'd agreed, Uday had given a smug grin and said graciously, "From now on, you're not just my friend, you're my brother." His brother? What does he mean by that? Could I have continued to resist? No. I repressed the question. It's pointless because if I'd said no, Uday would probably have had both me and my entire family murdered in the most terrible manner. The Sadam clan has already had thousands of innocent people killed. They simply disappeared. They're one day, gone the next. Never to be seen again. No one knows exactly what happened to them, but it's obvious they're dead. My car stops by the entrance to Project Number 7. This isn't an ordinary home with a driveway. Outside the building are several car parks that are invisible from the road. Alongside them is an immaculately manicured lawn and behind it a huge wooden door with massive double-wing doors. A larger-than-life green, black and white eagle perches on top, the Iraqi national emblem. Above the eagle are 3 black stars all inlaid with ceramic mosaic. Strategically positioned on every corner are security cameras that were around to monitor our arrival. There's no nameplate on the door, or doorbell, just an intercom set into a wall which is screened off by panels of scrupulously clean mirrored glass. The double doors swing open automatically and silently. My 2 guards escort me into the 2-story building. Architecturally, it didn't look very impressive from the outside. There are thousands of similar buildings in Baghdad. But I quickly see that the exterior is misleading. Inside is a vast, imposing courtyard dominated by an equally imposing swimming pool. Wide, curving steps lead into the pool which has a finishing touch of black marble round its rim. To the side of the pool is a brick sickle-shaped bar also made of black, glistening marble with thin white veins. It was probably imported from Italy, Carrara marble. Dotted around in front of the bar are sun loungers made of thick bamboo topped by white cushions with gold edges. Side rooms lead off from the swimming pool forming the shape of a star. I'm led into one of these rooms which turns out to be Uday's study. Once more, I have to grudgingly admire his taste in decor. The room is spacious, though I guess anything would be after the red cell, and furnished without an ounce of kitsch. No plush white carpet, no gold trim, no fancy decoration, no columns, no curvy, tacky stucco. The room is straight-lined, bright and uncluttered. Stood in a corner is a solid desk with a dark, polished top and beside it are 2 armchairs upholstered in light-colored fabric. Behind the desk is a bookcase full of Arab literature. Pure decoration, I muse. Uday won't have read a page of any of those books. A few files lay on the desk alongside a gold Cartier fountain pen and a gold DuPont lighter. Next to these items is a black, electrical cable. It's thick and round and about 2 foot in length. The most notable feature in this room with pastel wallpaper is a set of pale yellow couches that must be able of seating an audience of at least 20 people. Dotted around are numerous brightly polished silver bowls containing peanuts, sweets, cigarettes and other silver vases with flower arrangements. Waiting for me are 3 men who are clearly aware of why I'm there and probably plan my whole ordeal. The first is Munyam Hamd al-Tikriti, who is head of the Al-Qas security service. Munyam Hamd's appearance gives no clue as to his job. He looks refined and reticent. He's of slim build, an inch or so taller than me and going gray at the temples. He gives me a surprisingly friendly greeting, though this was the first time we'd met. Like everyone else in Iraq, I knew the second man from his fearsome reputation. He was Captain Syed Hassan Hashim al-Nasiri, a long-term friend of Saddam and brother-in-law to Rokan, the president's personal bodyguard. Al-Nasiri is one of the worst criminals in Iraq and probably the entire world, a mass murderer. He's a powerful, dangerous man with cold, gray eyes, a pointed, striking face and an extremely large hooked nose. An eagle would be embarrassed to have plonked on the middle of its face. But embarrassment isn't a feeling al-Nasiri has. He doesn't show any. He's ice cold and sadistic. He oversees all the executions that Saddam orders. When we shake hands, his face remains expressionless. A corpse could have greeted me more warmly. The third man is Captain Sadam Hussein al-Nasiri, one of Saddam's cousins. He's small, bullish and unpleasant in the extreme. Azam, Uday's bodyguard, does the introductions. Munyam Hamd begins the conversation with a compliment. Sit down, Latif. Relax. Uday has already told us that you're a brave and resolute fighter. I smiled until he continued, I'm so glad you've come to us of your own free will. Free will? What rot. But there's something strangely calming about his soothing tone of voice. He talks to me as if I wasn't his serf but a welcome partner on a tricky assignment. He makes me think he's the first Iraqi officer I've met who isn't completely crazy, opinionated beyond belief and shows no respect to his brother soldiers. Munyam Hamd seems to notice I'm warming to him. He speaks calmly in good Arabic, coherent and concise. His friendly voice doesn't slip into the arrogant, commanding bark I'm used to. Every single word remains calm. You'll have to get used to all this, he says, gesturing around. Then he puts his arm on my least soiled shoulder and leads me off. Let's take a look around the palace and then you can freshen up. The others nod in agreement. Like an estate agent giving a tour to prospective buyers, Munyam Hamd leads the way out of the room with us all in tow. That was Uday's study, he says and then asks, you know each other from your student days, don't you? I nod. Yes, from school. He points to the turquoise swimming pool and says I can use it whenever I want to. I'd like to dive in straight away and get clean but think better of it. The changing rooms and towels, he says pointing to a side room, are in there. Directly behind the bar, I see an open room with changing cubicles and baskets full of freshly laundered and folded towels. Also a shower, that luxury of all luxuries, a toilet, wash basins and mirrors. I desperately want to run in and shower but Munyam Hamd is already going into the next room. They all lead off from the pool. This one's a guest bedroom, my guide says. I see a French double bed with a beige knitted counterpane and matching curtains. The room is spacious enough to easily contain a wardrobe, a desk, a couch and a television. The best Sony can produce and straight from their factory by the look of its gleaming screen. Adjoining the guest bedroom are stairs leading to the upper floor. But first we look into Uday's bedroom. It's similar to the guest room but with a much larger bed. Instead of a desk, there's a black table and several chairs. At the foot of the bed is a huge television screen wired to a video recorder. From now on, smiles Munyam, this is your room. That's how Uday wants it. You're his brother so he'd like you to live in his room. I note that next to the table is a telephone. I have a quick glance around but can't see any surveillance cameras. They then show me the drawing room. It's a hall-like room so large it comfortably contains 4 different suites of furniture. On the first floor is a party room. It's exactly like a nightclub discotheque with a stage, a sound system and numerous tables and chairs. They were my new, least favorite, color, red. Munyam Hamd ends his guided tour with the wry understatement, "So Latif, I'm sure you want to rest and I'm absolutely sure you want a shower." Everyone laughs. So do I. I'd lost my dignity during the last week but hadn't lost my sense of humor. We return to Uday's bedroom, which is now my bedroom. They leave me but also leave the door to the pool open. A cool breeze stirs the curtains. I sit down on the chair and shake my head in disbelief at swapping my red cell for Uday's own bedroom. I laugh and shake my head again. What's going on? I get to my feet and walk over to the door. There's no one to be seen but I sense they're there. They're everywhere. Uday is probably sitting watching me on a monitor screen just as he must have done when I was in his office. My eyes fix on the phone. It's a big, bulky American make. I'm tempted to pick it up and ring my parents' number but know I wouldn't be connected. My newfound friends are devious, cunning and definitely not trusting. I pick up the phone anyway. I hear the engaged tone. I press a few buttons. I still hear the engaged tone. At least I expected nothing less. Then I see my reflection in the mirror. When I was in the car coming here, I tried to glance at myself in the rearview mirror, curious to see what I looked like with a full beard. I walk up to the mirror saying to my reflection, "So that's Latif Yahia, the officer of the proud Iraqi army." I take an exceptionally long hot shower. The bathroom is also lined with black marble and has everything you could possibly need, one and find in a 5-star hotel: disposable razor, bath gel, shaving foam, shampoo, toothpaste, toothbrush, hair cream, hairbrush. Everything, a dressing gown, big thick towels, body lotion. I use it all as I scrub off the filth of the past week and revert to looking and smelling human again. I'm suddenly overcome with exhaustion. I sleep soundly that night. Next morning, I wake early. It's early October 1987 and Baghdad is still sultry and hot. Last night, I'd thrown my filthy uniform on a chair but now it's disappeared. So have my shoes and underwear. New clothes and shoes have appeared in their place. A pale designer suit, white shirt and underwear. Fresh towels and a new dressing gown have also materialized as has breakfast on the table. Tea, sweets, fresh fruit. I sip from the thermos and eat an orange. The catering is a very welcome upgrade. I wonder how I failed to notice these things being delivered to my room and by whom? I shower, get dressed and wait. At just after 9 a.m., the same officers from the previous day come and escort me over to Uday's study. There, Munyam Hamd hands me a 2-page document. "Read that carefully, then sign it," he tells me and indicates me to sit on one of the yellow couches. I see it's a contract. A contract between me and the Republic of Iraq. I, Latif Yahia, First Lieutenant, swear to pass on nothing concerning the life of Uday Hussein to the public. Everything I see, hear and experience with him during our collaboration is bound by a duty of secrecy. I am forbidden to pass on files, photographs, videos or any other notes to third parties. Any contravention of this contract will be punishable by death by hanging. Latif Yahia, Baghdad, February 10, 1987. I sign it. And for the next 10 days nothing happens at all. Munyam Hamd had advised me, "Now you are Uday Sadam Hussein, the president's son. Don't speak to the domestic staff and don't try to make any outside contact through them." The domestic staff consist of a cook, 4 chambermaids and a kind of butler. From their reaction to me, they've been given the same order and obey it. They treat me as if I am Uday Hussein. They never say a word to me or dare look me in the eye as they bring me fresh linen and serve the best food I've ever eaten. Every day. There's meat served in European-style dishes with fresh vegetables and limitless fruit. I can even help myself to drinks from the bar by the pool. There's no sign of Uday or anyone else to give me orders. I'm living in paradise, but paradise is a gilded cage. I'm fully aware of my situation, but what worries me is my parents aren't. They've heard nothing from me for 3 weeks. That's nothing unusual, After all, there's a war on and they think I'm serving at the front. Curiously, it isn't just that I'm alive I want them to know. I want to tell them about my unexpected new job and my heavenly new lifestyle. Let them know where I'm living, how I'm living and what's happening to me here. I fully recover from my red cell ordeal. Every day, I lounge by the pool. In the evenings, I watch the news on television drinking gin and tonics. Admittedly, I often worried about what would happen to me in the future, but I could do nothing so dismissed such thoughts with another G&T. To my surprise, I was starting to empathize with Uday. There's a definite satisfaction to having servants reacting to every wave of your hand. I lie by the pool in the autumn sun, raise my hand and someone hurries over to take my order. A sandwich. I realize I'm no longer saying please or thank you. I've quickly adopted a sense of superiority that I've always despised in others. Too much ice. I yell at the poor girl. I've told you 100 times. All she does is apologize profusely and hurriedly brings me a fresh glass with less ice. She treats me exactly as if I am the son of her country's president. No one ever dares to contradict me. After the front line, my cosseted existence in Uday's palace is like being wrapped in cotton wool. No corners, no sharp edges, no problems, just luxury. I didn't even much mind that my life of luxury was confined to within the palace walls. Watching the outside world on the news, I was happy to be a pampered observer. I wander through all the rooms, have my towels and clothes replaced daily and even use expensive cologne although there's no women to attract with it. I do it because I can. Because there's no one to stop me, only subservient people who encourage and indulge me. Am I Uday? It's late afternoon on the 12th October. I'm resting on my bed when I'm disturbed by the phone ringing. Come to the study, orders a man's voice. I get dressed and walk past the pool to Uday's office. Uday is standing there with Munyam Hamd and two men who aren't Arabs. One is taller than me with brown hair and a round face. The other is shorter, stocky but not fat. Uday greets me enthusiastically, kissing me on both cheeks like a brother, and introduces me to the two men. I shake their hands but they don't say a word. Uday explains, they're doctors. Specialists who are here to examine you, Latif. I wonder why. It's obvious I'm perfectly healthy, but I know better than to question Uday. If he wants doctors to examine me, so do I. Fine. Where do they want to examine me? Here? Uday nods and the men step forward. Munyam Hamd reassures me, it's only a routine examination, nothing special. You can be completely relaxed. One of the doctors says something to Munyam Hamd in a language I don't understand. I know it isn't English, French, Italian or German. It sounds like Russian, Polish or possibly a Slovak language. Munyam Hamd acts as translator, please undress. Embarrassed, I strip in front of them all. I don't like to, but I have no choice. I'm weighed and my height measured. They peer into my mouth, then in my ears and shine a light into my eyes. They palpate me, check whether I have a rupture, examine my anus, listen to my heartbeat, measure my blood pressure and take blood and urine samples. They go through a detailed questionnaire which is several pages long, point by pedantic point. This lasts almost 2 hours. After that, they still haven't finished. They study my skin with a specialist instrument. I'm put through a series of speech tests, I howl like a dog, project my voice like an actor on stage, laugh hysterically. All of it is recorded and the two doctors take copious notes. They continuously talk to each other in that peculiar guttural language that sounds a bit like a code. Uday quickly gets bored and walks out after the first 10 minutes. I'll look at the results when they're ready, gentlemen, are his parting words. The next day, the report on my tests is presented to Uday. He calls me in like a headmaster informing a pupil of his exam results. I feel a bit of trepidation as I enter his study, but he beams at me and looks enthusiastic. Munyam Hamd is also there and slowly reads out the report. My skin color is 99% identical to Uday's. Shape of face, ears, nose hair growth area and physique are practically identical. I'm just 3 centimeters shorter than Uday and 2 kilograms lighter. Uday weighs in at 83 kilos whilst I weigh 81. Weight, Hamd points out, isn't a problem and height isn't either. Special shoes with platform heels can make up the difference. Our vocal tones are also almost 100% identical. But Uday has problems pronouncing the letter R because of his slightly protruding teeth. These are the cause of his speech defect, a slight lisp, but Munyam Hamd is far too wily to mention that. Can the teeth be corrected? Asks Uday. Hamd nods. I've observed we have different eyes, too. Uday's are a little larger than mine. Munyam Hamd comes onto that and says it can easily be sorted out with makeup. But your teeth, says Hamd with a sympathetic smile, will have to be cosmetically altered. Do you agree to that? I'm surprised. I thought the question should have been addressed to Uday. Why doesn't he get his straightened? I see him grinning at me. The thought hasn't even occurred to him. He must think he's perfect. No one has ever told him differently, I guess. And I'm not about to be the first and end up back in the red cell. My internal resistance has been almost entirely erased, and anyway I want to stay in paradise. Of course I agree, I say. 24 hours later, I'm taken to the exclusive Ibn Sina hospital in the palace grounds. I have an appointment with Dr. Ahmed al-Samrai. He's the private dentist of Sadam Hussein's family and qualified in the USA. He's already been briefed on what is required. I lay down on the white dentist's chair, which is really a hydraulically operated bed. Ahmed al-Samrai shines a light into my mouth and slowly examines my teeth, one by one. Then he takes me to the X-ray room. After X-rays are taken, I'm told to come back the following day. During my second examination, a pink jelly-like substance is gently pressed into my mouth. I feel it slowly swell up around my teeth. It's left there for around 10 minutes before it's carefully removed and my saliva on it is blown away with pressurized air. He inspects the impression with a frown and we go through the whole process again. This time he's pleased with the result. Later, I learn plaster molds are made from the second impression and these are compared to ones made from Uday's teeth. That's how Dr. Ahmed decides what dental adjustments are needed to make my mouth look identical to Uday's. 4 days later, I'm laid out on the dentist's chair again. This time my mouth is wide open and numb from a local anesthetic. My front incisors and the 2 teeth next to them are filed down to their roots. Then another cast is taken. It's perfectly painless and my only discomfort is the jet of cold air blown into my mouth before the cast is done. I spend an uncomfortable 2 days before my crowns are ready. I'm given temporary dentures but they don't fit too well, so I can hardly eat anything and it hurts if I drink anything cold. So no ice at all now. My 4 new teeth take only a few minutes to implant. While Dr. Ahmed does this, he's carefully watched by the 2 foreign doctors, but not a word is spoken throughout the procedure. The operation is successful. Or that's what Dr. Ahmed claims as he examines my new teeth. He tells me to bite my jaws together a number of times. He files my incisors down some more and then he's finished. I inspect my new oddly smooth but crooked teeth with my tongue. They feel very strange. I'm asked to say something. I experience a totally new feeling. I lisp. Not that strongly, but I move my tongue differently. My reflection comes as a shock. My upper lip looks bigger than it did before. When I bite my teeth together, I no longer bite on my incisors but on my molars. It feels like all the positions of my teeth have changed. Well, I'll just have to get used to it. I bite my teeth together several times trying to do exactly that. I speak a few sentences. It's impossible to talk now without a lisp. I have to admire Dr. Ahmed's dentistry skill and can't help saying, it's odd but brilliant. Although I appreciate the skill involved in transforming my mouth, I regret losing my healthy, straight teeth that I'd carefully brushed from infancy. Uday has no such regrets for me. He's delighted with my new smile. Now we really do look like 2 peas in a pod. We must start the training, he says. I pay close attention to his pronunciation. It sounds like, why moest stat the twaining. The following day the barber arrives. He meticulously styles my hair to look exactly like Uday's. It seems like 1 hair at a time is carefully snipped. Then he shapes my beard into an identical copy of the one that Uday has. It all takes almost as long as my examination by the doctors. Now my actual training begins. I'm taken to the second floor of the Secret Service headquarters. They show me into a room made ready for my induction into Uday's life. It's a large office with 2 desks and rows of shelves. Instead of books, the shelves support television sets arranged in a video wall. Not Sony ones here but Panasonic. They are larger than normal sets, about 3 feet wide and 2 feet tall. Next to each one is a video recorder, and on a table is a pile of video cassettes, all with writing on them. In front of the video wall are 3 microphone stands, all without microphones, and in front of these are rows of seats. It's like a private cinema. Thick plastic curtains hang in front of the windows and are thick enough to block the sun from shining in. Towers of speakers are in all 4 corners of the room. Big round bass speakers are at the bottom, smaller ones for high-pitched sounds at the top. They are linked by a mixing desk with hundreds of red, yellow and white buttons and dials and slider controls. A sound studio, I think to myself. But I can't think why we should be in here. Munyam Hamd leads me by the arm and points to the video wall, saying, "We'll be spending the next few weeks in this room." Nothing happens for 10 minutes. Munyam Hamd speaks to his own officers, but I'm unable to overhear them. They all leave me in the room. I stroll over and pick up one of the video cassettes. Its title reads, 26th of May 1987. Mr. Uday Hussein at the General Meeting of the Iraqi Sports Association. Close-ups, hands, face, walk. Munyam Hamd returns with his officers and introduces one of them to me. For once, Munyam speaks quickly and I don't catch the agent's name. I don't care, as I've met so many people in the last few weeks. They all seem to be important, but I only have brief contact with them and am certainly not on first-name terms with any. This tall officer has dark skin, a bushy mustache and expressive brown eyes, the left one seemingly larger than the right. He appears friendly, although his handshake is surprisingly limp for a man of such muscular physique. He asks me to follow him to another room. Munyam Hamd stays behind. I'm surprised. Until now, he's been my shadow, my father, my mother, my protector, my everything. We enter through padded doors into a room very similar to the other one, except it's smaller. The video wall here only consists of 3 televisions and there's no mixing deck or rows of seats. The officer invites me to sit down and explains that what I'm about to see is a small selection of tapes from Saddam's Special Treatment Department. It all becomes clear. I'm sat in the Chamber of Horrors, Iraq's Black Museum. The record center of complete contempt for one's fellow man. The officer inserts a video cassette. It has no sound. There are flickers on the screen, a run-up that lasts a few seconds, and then the first picture appears. It's of a man aged around 30, his head shorn, his face clean-shaven, his naked body bruised and bleeding. He's slumped in a chair that he's tied to. It's a big, heavy, strong chair screwed into the floor. The man is seen to groan, his cheeks are hollow, his eyes closed. Only now do I notice that they have even shaved off his eyebrows. I turn to ask the officer what's happening to the man, but he just grins at me and nods towards the television. I take it that means I must give the gruesome image my undivided attention. The man's hands grip into the arms of the chair. The veins in his hands and forearms stand out and look like they could burst any second. His ribs, his sternum and his collarbones are all clearly visible and look like they are trying to escape from his body. The man must barely weigh 7 stone. He must be tall, as he's hanging in the chair in a twisted posture. Crocodile clips are attached to his nipples, which are stretched as long as a woman's. The jagged clips are about 2 centimeters long and made of shiny steel. They've cut deeply into the dark flesh of his nipples. More crocodile clips are viciously fastened to the man's eyelids, ears and genitals. On the handles of the clips are bright blue semicircular isolation devices with cables trailing off them. On the left-hand side is a red cable, about 3 millimeters thick. On the right-hand side is a black cable of equal thickness. All the cables lead back to an enormous battery. The setup is controlled by a monitor desk-like instrument panel that's positioned beside the chair. Behind it sits a man in uniform, but only his big, coarse hairy hands are on screen. One of these gorillas' paws presses a button. The camera pans to the haggard man in the chair. His body begins to twitch, then shakes like an aggressive terrier. His face contorts into a grimace, his head vibrates, the corners of his mouth twist convulsively downwards, the veins on his forehead bulge out. His lips have turned white and are pressed tightly together. The camera zooms in for a close-up of his face. His sunken eyes are still closed, but his eyeballs can be seen juddering around behind his eyelids and threaten to pop out like glass balls. The man struggles to control himself. He fights against the pain and unconsciousness. He tries not to give in. To show his torturers he's strong, but he fails. The shock is stronger than his spirit. Foamy saliva flows from between his clamped lips. He opens them slightly and I can see his clenched teeth, dark brown at the edges from chewing tobacco. He shakes his head as if his brain is about to burst for several agonizing seconds, but it must have seemed like an eternity to him. Suddenly he opens his mouth as wide as he can and shouts. As there's no sound, I can't hear the shout, but I hear it anyway. Feel him, sense him, feel his terrible pain just as he does. The electric shock torture is repeated several times. But I don't find out whether the poor man survives it. Because all of a sudden the recording cuts out and the flickering returns. I notice the officer is giving me an inquiring look as if wondering what I make of this introduction. I control my true feelings, as to launch into a tirade of shocked condemnation would be suicidal. The officer explains to me that they've learned most of their torture techniques from the Soviet Secret Service. Although some novel ideas also came from East Germany. He goes on to say there are over 10,000 Soviet military advisors in Iraq. They work on computer stations in missile bases, service the MiG jet fighter squadrons and oversee the country's military technology, minus 60% of which originated in the Soviet Union. They're supported by experts from the East German State Security Service who sold their knowledge to Iraq for convertible currency. Precisely how many of them are in Iraq is unknown, but it's no secret that the Iraqi security services are absolute specialists in the fields of information technology, bugging devices and the construction and detonation of autonomously controlled security devices. Other expert staff supporting Saddam's regime of terror come from Angola and Cuba. Another tape is inserted and begins to play. Another man with his hair shorn off appears on the screen. This one is younger and fitter, his muscles are pronounced and firm. He's stripped to the waist but wears faded trousers. His hands are tied in front of him. His posture is slumped forward, his eyes are lowered, staring at the floor. He clearly doesn't want to look into the camera, but all of a sudden he stares glumly into it, his eyes wide open. He must have been ordered to. The man stares into the camera for a few minutes. His eyes are expressionless, the young man seems to have lost all his willpower. He was a policeman, my officer explains and continues with a veiled threat, who refused to obey orders. He doesn't elaborate on what the orders were and says no more on the subject. He probably doesn't even know the man's history. People's destinies are of no importance whatsoever in Iraq. There's violence everywhere and one individual counts for nothing. Thousands die on Saddam's orders, but the very fact that so many die means executions have become normality. A daily, bloody routine. The ex-policeman slowly turns round and shows his back to the camera. His broad back is a battlefield. Deep, long wounds. Dozens of blue strips, skin that has been sliced by heavy, sharp blows. The cuts are jagged at the edge, brown and red amongst purple bruising. There's big scabs of dried, crusted blood, yellow with oozing pus in the deepest wounds. A man walks up behind the pitifully injured ex-policeman. I see he's clutching a black, electric cable about 2 foot long. The sight of it triggers a memory. I'd seen a cable just like it on, but I can't think where. The man takes a step back, swings the cable through the air and lashes the ex-policeman's back again. He staggers forward, twitches, his muscles convulse. I close my eyes. I don't want to see the blood spray. In my imagination, I still hear the cable cutting through the air and landing with a crack on the skin. I remember now. There was an identical cable on Uday's desk. The man doing the beating isn't Uday, is it? No, it's not him, but clearly black electrical cable whips are standard issue in his social circle. Thankfully, They haven't beaten me so far. Psychological torture was enough to convert me to their cause. The red room, red walls. My week in the red shower cubicle cell where other prisoners had mutilated themselves, leaving their own dried red blood on the red paint. I now think they had treated me with kid gloves. I'm valuable. Uday needs me. My uncanny resemblance to him is a piece of capital I can use to my advantage. I just need to play along. Do what they say, put my personality away in a drawer. But what will the end be like? Where will it stop? I try to be positive. The palace, life with Uday. Access to the clan. I'm part of it now. I'm at the very top yet at the same time a prisoner. But I'm alive and probably safer than if I was serving at the front line. The next video begins. This time there are two men. Both are wearing handcuffs and have chains around their ankles. They're connected to each other and the men can only shuffle along. They're in the courtyard of a barrack-like building. I don't recognize where it is but assume it's al-Rashid, the extermination camp on the edge of Baghdad. The men are being led to their executions. Death by hanging. The hangman pushes them onto a wooden platform, puts ropes with nooses around their necks and tugs the knot tight. A trapdoor opens with a jolt right under the offender's feet. Their bodies stay bolt upright but fall a few inches. The nooses pull tight and their heads are jerked to the right, each instantly has a broken neck. Sickening as these videos are, they're only the prelude. I have to sit through a series of revolting, educational examples of how opponents are dealt with under Saddam's regime. Video 4. A naked man stands with his legs apart over an empty dark green red wine bottle with a long neck. The prisoner's arms are tied tightly around his waist and he's forced to squat down on the bottleneck until it disappears up his anus. This video has sound. The prisoner screams out in agony and begs for mercy, but his torturers just laugh and make flippant comments like, "What's the matter? Aren't you enjoying it?" Sadam Hussein is proud of his torturers. He refers to them as the sharp swords of government. The bottleneck up his anus must have caused the man severe internal injuries. I see blood trickling down over the rest of the bottle. The man loses consciousness and topples over. Video 5. I see the title of this spectacle is titled Sitting on the Gas Ring. The criminal is tied naked to a gas ring. It's turned on and lit. Within seconds, the bluish flame melts away the skin and flesh. Video 6. A prisoner's ankles are tied together with rope, the end of which is tied to a type of fan which is screwed into the wall. The prisoner's head points down to the floor. The fan is switched on, causing the man's body to rotate as though he's pirouetting. The torturers beat the spinning man's head with wooden truncheons. The poor man hangs from the fan for an hour, more blood flicking from his head with every circuit. I don't think he could possibly have survived. Video 7. Burning of the beard, mustache, eyebrows and hair. This is only used on Islamic fundamentalists such as members of the Al-Dawa party. Video 8. Burning of hands. The prisoner's hands are fastened to an electric heater. When it's turned on, the glowing element burns the fingers and palms down to the bone. Video 9. The iron. Skewers are heated up on a fire and then pressed against the prisoner's body to burn and brand it. Truly medieval. Video 10. Drilling holes in the prisoner's hands and feet with an electric drill. Video 11. The prisoner's nose is broken with blows from a hammer. Video 12. Stretching the prisoner's mouth with a vice until the jaw breaks and teeth shatter. This form of torture is used on those whose mouths have insulted Saddam Hussein. Video 13. The prisoner is tied to a metal chair with his arms strapped to the arms of the chair. His fingers are stretched out and his fingernails wrenched out with pliers. Video 14. Severing of prisoner's arms or legs with a chainsaw. In some clips an axe was used. Video 15. An air pump is inserted in the prisoner's anus and then air is blown in until the buildup of pressure rips open the skin. Video 16. The prisoner has his hands tied behind his back and is strapped to what looks like a carpenter's bench. Torturers lift the bench up and down and the prisoner's shoulders are broken. Video 17. Water torture. The prisoner is strapped down under a water tap. The tap is turned on and left running into the prisoner's mouth. From what I saw, it usually only takes half an hour before the victim loses control of his bodily functions. Video 18. The well. It's filled to a depth of about 4 foot with stagnant water. The prisoner is thrown into it and left for days. Video 19. Blows with a truncheon to the prisoner's head and between his legs. Video 20. Psychological terror. The prisoner is blindfolded and shoved into an empty room. As soon as he looks to be going to sleep, a loudspeaker emits an ear-splitting, high-pitched noise. Video 21. The prisoner stands with his back pressed against a wall. His head is squeezed between 2 wooden wedges. His ears are securely nailed into these wedges. Days later, when the prisoner is so exhausted he can no longer stand, he slumps down and rips his own ears off. Video 22. A group of prisoners are securely bound and laid out in a cell with no ventilation. At the height of the summer, the temperature in such a cell can rise to more than 50 degrees Celsius. Video 23. Drilling or pulling out teeth. Not with the skill Dr. Ahmed showed. Video 24. A close-up of outstretched hands. Needles are pushed up under the fingernails. Video 25. Acid is sprayed onto the prisoner's body. It burns and dissolves the skin. Video 26. Murdered, mutilated corpses are thrown into cells with other prisoners. Video 27. Hungry, aggressive fighting dogs are released into cells and attack the prisoners. Video 28. The prisoner's nose is blocked so he has difficulty breathing. Video 29. The prisoner's tongue is stabbed with needles. Video 30. Prisoner's hands and feet are plunged into boiling oil. Video 31. Insect spray is squirted into prisoner's eyes. The next set of videos show women and children being tortured. Video 32. With their hands tied behind their backs, women are suspended by their hair. Husbands and children are forced to watch. Video 33. Women are raped in front of their husbands. Video 34. A woman who is menstruating is hung upside down by her feet until her period is over. Video 35. Young children are locked in a cell with a beehive. Their powerless parents are forced to watch as their naked, crying offspring run around in terror and pain as they're stung hundreds of times. The horror show seems endless. I have seen more than enough sickening images. I know what they're trying to tell me, but I'm far from impressed. Most of these methods of torture are nothing new to me. I know the system. I'm an officer in the Iraqi army, a lieutenant. I've risen to that rank because I've shown courage in the face of a ruthless enemy. I'd seen plenty of atrocities on the front line and had grown pretty hardened to the sight of wounded and limbless soldiers. It made sense that the same people in power who sent soldiers to their death wouldn't hesitate to kill civilian men either. But I was shocked at the apparent enthusiasm with which the torturers carried out their orders. The scenes on the videos were obviously real. No camera tricks or special effects. These people were really dying in the act filmed for Saddam's home movie collection. The officer gives me another inane grin. I don't smile back. I feel nothing but revulsion for him. He's worse than an animal, a suited conspirator who derives amusement from atrocities. What was Uday thinking of when he ordered him to show me these sickening scenes? I can't fathom any of this madness out. He puts yet another video in the machine. Torturers are working on a man with a chainsaw as if his body is a tree trunk. They cut off his genitals. It's horrendous but doesn't shock me as much as the first videos I saw. I'm becoming immune to it all. 2 more men are thrown into a lake. Their hands are tied behind their backs and they quickly sink. Another unfortunate has his arms broken by iron bars. He gets off lightly compared to the next victim. In a scene straight out of the movie Casino, his head is crushed in a vice. The plates are slowly tightened together until his skull is shattered and his brain seeps out. At long last, I'm taken back to the video wall room. Munyam Hamd considerately asks if I'm okay. I nod and lie, yes, why not? I'm fine. What interests me more than those videos is what happens next. Munyam explains in his usual quiet, elegant manner. He uses his hands to emphasize his explanation. He isn't long-winded or flowery, he gets straight to the point. There's nothing oriental about Hamd. He's more British, like a leftover relic from when Iraq was a British crown colony. He fascinates me. In here, you're going to see videos featuring Uday Sadam Hussein, he says, pointing to the cassettes on the table in front of the video wall. Pay attention to what you see, note every detail and copy Uday as if you are a monkey. He inserts the first video. It's the one I saw dated 26th of May 1987 showing Uday chairing a meeting of the football section of the Sports Association. He sat at a table with half a dozen elegantly dressed gentlemen. I gather they are representatives of the Iraqi Football Association of which Uday is president. Quite why he is baffles me. He isn't at all athletic or sporty. This presidential office is an honorary one. It's a title given to the real president's eldest son because Saddam fills all important positions with family members. Saddam's clan needs to be linked to such roles so the family can present a supportive face to the ordinary population. Contact between the president's family, his clan and the masses needs to be nurtured. The role of president of the Football Association is ideal for this. Firstly, the president always sits in the director's box so is seen by the crowd but sufficiently far away from them not to be in danger. Secondly, football matches are held frequently so there are plenty of opportunities for public appearances. The long, podium-like table is covered with a white tablecloth on which are drinks and ashtrays. Uday sits in pole position in the middle. Or rather, he's slouched casually in his chair. He's the youngest man there by a good decade. He doesn't say a single word, just stares at the man speaking. That gentleman delivers a speech about financing a football club. Uday wears a light cotton suit, a white button-down shirt, a bright silk tie and matching handkerchief in his suit breast pocket. Between his index and middle fingers of his left hand, he holds his customary cigar, a Havana Montecristo No. 6 imported from Cuba. I can't see his legs but, judging from his upper body position, they're probably crossed. Munyam Hamd orders me to slump in my chair like Uday. It's easy because Uday used to sit like that in school and we often copied him. It was our discreet way of mocking him though he never cottoned on. I drape myself over my chair and let my right arm droop. My left shoulder is noticeably higher than my right one. I bend my left arm and hold an imaginary cigar in my fingers. Munyam Hamd chuckles and says, "Latif, we're idiots. We forgot your cigar." He yells across the empty room, "Bring us cigars." Surprisingly quickly, a box of Montecristo No. 6 appears. Munyam Hamd hands me one. I hold it as Uday is on the video, but don't light it. I stretch then, eyes glued to the ongoing television footage, reassume the whole pose again. I slump in my chair, right arm casually draped over the arm of the chair, my left shoulder lowered, left arm slightly bent and the fat cigar between my middle and index fingers. I see Munyam Hamd frowning at them. I'm holding my fingers stiffly, very straight. "Bend your fingers slightly," he says and shows me. He takes another cigar and holds it differently to me. "Hold it like this." I do. Then look from my hand to his and then at Uday's on the video. Within 10 minutes, I've mastered Uday's brand posture. I laugh and strike my thigh with my right hand as I'd seen Uday do. Munyam laughs with me. Then comes the next action. The video shows Uday putting the cigar in his mouth and taking a long draw on it with a pleasurable expression on his face. He doesn't inhale the smoke, just keeps it in his mouth a few seconds. As he does this, he throws his head back in a theatrical gesture, rolls it over to his right in a bored way and presses his lips together. It looks funny. Uday's goofy teeth, his fleshy lips, it all reminds me of a kind of animal behavior. Somehow some people look like animals in certain situations. I've got it. Uday sticks out his lower lip just like chimpanzees do as they chew on something. I chuckle at that thought, failing to realize that it also applies to me now. The dental operation has given me identical protruding teeth and an overbite. It's easy to forget that as I've quickly got used to the feel of my new mouth. There's no pain and the crowns feel as if they're my own teeth. I put the cigar into my mouth and bump the tip of it against my new incisors. It reminds me of the operation and that I'm still Latif Yahia, not Uday Sadam Hussein. My bodily movements are still mine, not his. I have to think about how Uday would move and it's not natural to me. The split second my brain takes to pass the commands to my limbs makes the action slightly artificial, and Munyam Hamd notices. You'll only be able to behave completely synchronically, he explains, and his words of wisdom suggest he has experience in such matters, when you don't need to think about it. It's like speaking in a foreign language. You'll only be able to speak English perfectly when you can think in English. If you think in your mother tongue and have to concentrate on vocabulary and intonation, then you'll never be able to speak English fluently and without an accent. Another 4 hours is spent watching Uday. I don't try to copy him, I just concentrate on the smallest details. How he moves, his facial expressions, his flamboyant gestures. He walks with an upright stance, his chest jutting out. He keeps his shoulders in a straight line to his body. He doesn't walk, he strides with a spring in his step. Uday doesn't sit, either. He always slumps in his chair. His back is never upright and straight. His legs are never side by side, they're always crossed. He always swings his left leg over his right, stays like that for a few minutes, occasionally wiggles his foot and then swings his right leg over his left. His laugh is unusual. It isn't loud, deep and echoing from the back of his throat. He has a high-pitched staccato giggle, hee-hee-hey-ay. Then he stops for a second before continuing to giggle again, me. His torso shakes, pulling his body slightly forward, and the corners of his mouth go downward, hee-hee-hey-ay. For 3 days, from 9 a.m. in the morning until Muslim evening prayers, I just sit studying these videos. Although no one in Uday's inner circle prays, I try to 5 times a day. They seem to accept this, which amuses me. They think the fundamental rules of the Muslim faith are a relic with little relevance to today's world. They are modern Muslims and modern Muslims are Western. Deep religious faith is scorned, faith diminishes man, especially if he lives his life as the Quran decrees. Saddam Hussein's Iraq may be an Arab state, but it's totally different from other states with fundamentalist governments like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and particularly Iran. Through the Ba'ath Party led by Saddam Hussein, Iraq was governed by Arabs with Western, socialist ideals for whom the Muslim religion is only of secondary importance. Socialism forms the basis of society, not the Quran. Our prophet is not Muhammad but Saddam Hussein with his fanatical faith and the heroic teachings of his political party. Iraqi women have complete equality to men. There's no obligation for them to wear the chador if they don't want to, or their husbands don't insist they hide their faces. Mosques have been downgraded to tourist attractions. There are nightclubs and alcohol, drunks and prostitutes. People in Iraq are more likely to get stoned on drugs rather than with rocks. Baghdad is the modern Babylon. After the 3rd day of intensively studying tapes, I feel I know how Uday feels, thinks and acts. Under Munyam Hamd's critical gaze, I have mastered how to stand like him, sit like him and smoke like him. Then we embark on language training. This is far more difficult. Uday's overbite, which was far more obvious in his school days than it is now, makes it difficult for him to pronounce the letter R. Since my dental modifications, I have the same problem but not to the extent Uday must have. I instinctively still try to speak clearly, which involves opening my mouth wider than I did before, which twists the corners of my mouth in a more extreme way than Uday does. It's difficult to fight against this natural reaction and to consciously try to speak with a lisp. Munyam Hamd is constantly criticizing, saying, "Be a parrot, Latif. Be a parrot," continually repeating the advice also like a parrot. For what seems like hundreds of times, we run through how Uday typically opens a meeting or conference. How he is around friends. How he watches a parade or football match. Munyam Hamd drums into me that Uday seldom looks anyone directly in the eye and avoids shaking hands. Uday greets almost everyone with his nose in the air, without even the faintest smile, and never says much. He doesn't need to. He is the president's son, so has authority and power. He must look the role and be aloof yet intensely patriotic if the occasion demands. He must also be completely detached from the bodyguards who surround him. They aren't soldiers like myself but subordinates who must follow his orders without question. There are no pats on the shoulder, no friendly smiles or hugs. It's just a dictatorial master and servant relationship. Most of the time Uday wears Ray-Ban sunglasses. He has the habit of looking past the person talking to him as to emphasize the distance in status between the president's son and normal people. It makes you feel insignificant. A vital part of the training was to practice how Uday would leave a building and walk to a car. This moment is seen as one of the most dangerous, as it's when a potential assassin stands the greatest chance of success. When a meeting ends, Uday announces his departure by standing up and curtly nodding farewell to those attending. His bodyguards cluster round him and he strides out of the room. Then, like a bank robber, he charges out into the open and runs to his car, which is always waiting with its engine running and door open. The route from the building to the car must be covered as fast as possible so as not to give a sniper time to take careful aim. Uday never uses a chauffeur. He always drives himself. We practice driving in his inimitable style. Sitting casually at the steering wheel, never holding it in both hands, the left arm elbow always leaning on the door. Like in normal chairs, he always sits crookedly in the driving seat, too. But there's nothing casual about the way he drives. He roars around Baghdad like a Formula One racing driver, often hitting 120 miles per hour. He always drives at top speed, continually double-clutching. Uday stays in radio contact with his bodyguards who drive in other cars both in front and behind him. The convoy is usually 4 cars. They travel tailgating in single file, and on Uday's command they overtake each other. He orders, 3 overtake 2, 1 fall back. Take number 3 position. This continual swapping position is done to confuse potential assassins. They never know which car Uday's driving. If the sequence of the cars traveled in the same order and at a normal speed, assassins would have a much easier job, but, under Uday's system, they'd have to blow up the whole convoy to make sure they killed him, and that would be difficult. I learned to drive like a maniac in a metallic Mercedes and a pale blue Porsche. There are more than 100 cars in Uday's garages: Ferraris, Maseratis, Porsches, Jaguars. So far, I haven't seen any of these cars, but I'm informed that the car's colors are very important to Uday. They have to match his suit. If he happens to be wearing gray, then the car he drives must be gray as well. This tale seems extremely unlikely to me, but I soon find out it's true. I forget about Uday's extravagances and concentrate on improving my driving. It's similar to training a dog or horse. I get no rest until I can obey Uday's convoy commands in my sleep, and my feet ache from stamping on the accelerator and brake pedals. On the 15th of October 1987, Munyam summons me to Uday's study. He informs me that he's reasonably pleased with my progress to date. I'm disappointed. I consider I'm doing really well. I've mastered the lisp and perfected Uday's mannerisms. Surely this is more than could be expected in such a short space of time? I'm also a bit alarmed. What's the problem, I wonder? On the table, in front of Munyam Hamd, is a letter. Not any old letter, this one has the Iraqi eagle as its letterhead. An official communication. Munyam Hamd picks it up and says, "We will now inform the President. Lieutenant General al-Nasiri has written this letter and given it to me for counter-signature." His words come as a shock. You haven't told him? Taking me off the front line, my psychological terror in the red cell, all the training, you've done it all without his knowledge? I learn my whole ordeal to date is an independent initiative by Uday and his officers. An attempt by a mummy's boy to impress his father. Probably to prove he's capable of organizing his own protection by himself. He's been the first to find a Fede who isn't a family member but still looks authentic and convincing. Or so I hope. Munyam Hamd shows me the letter that they'll send to the President that very day. Iraqi Republic. Head of the Chancellery of the Republic Secret Service Organization. In the name of merciful God. Honorable President of the Iraqi Republic, may God preserve and protect your rule. Mr. President, I should like to inform your lordship that our Secret Service Organization, Security Department, under the leadership of the following officers. 1. Major Munyam Shabib Munyam Hamd al-Tikriti. 2. Captain Syed Hassan Hashim al-Nasiri. 3. Captain Sadam Hussein al-Nasiri, has successfully recruited Lieutenant Latif Yahia Latif al-Salihi, who bears a very strong resemblance to Mr. Uday Sadam Hussein, to our organization. After making inquiries and investigations into him and his family, we have established the following. 1. His name is Latif Yahia Latif al-Salihi, Kurd, born 14th of June 1964 in Baghdad, Muslim, Sunni. 2. Studied government and law, graduating in 1986. 3. He began his career in military service as a second lieutenant with the Special Commando Unit. After 6 months, he was promoted to lieutenant for his commitment and courage. 4. He has never been noted for political or other errors. 5. He owns an import-export business, a Chawain, import-export on Dialai Street in the Mansour district. He owns 2 Mercedes cars and has an account with the Iraqi Central Bank. After we had discovered these details, and because of his close resemblance to Mr. Uday Sadam Hussein, we decided, with the written agreement of Mr. Uday Sadam Hussein, to use him as a serf and fidei for Mr. Uday Sadam Hussein in difficult, important and dangerous operations and tasks. We have already begun his training and found him to be an intelligent man and willing to serve his fatherland, Iraq. Everything else is left to your discretion and you, sir, have the final word. May the Iraqi flag under your rule fly long in our dear Iraq. Signed, Lieutenant General Fanaz Zibn al-Nasiri, Director of the Secret Service Organization, 15th of October 1987. As I read the letter, I shudder. It slowly becomes clear that, so far, I've been a mere plaything, a living toy for Uday and his officers. They've tracked me down, started my training and confirmed that I have potential and am ideologically pure. That I'm interested in Uday's life and yearn to live in paradise. But what have I gained from it so far? Nothing but a set of buck teeth. All my mental anguish and hard work is just a prelude. The real decision will be made by the President. That explains why Munyam Hamd was so restrained in praising my progress so far. He's sitting on the fence and daren't pre-guess Saddam's final decision. What if Saddam says no, what then? Munyam Hamd, sir, if His Lordship Saddam Hussein rejects me as his son's fidei, what will happen to me? I ask. I get the worst possibly reply. Munyam Hamd avoids looking me in the eyes. He says nothing, gets up and leaves the room. I know what that answer means, I'm a dead man. If the President doesn't accept me, I'll disappear as if I never existed. I wonder how. I think of the blood-stained red cell. I think of the video of the men in the al-Rashid camp being led to the scaffold with their hands bound and chains around their ankles. The trapdoor opens under their feet, a brief jolt, their heads jerked to one side. A broken neck. Maybe I'm being unduly morbid and pessimistic. With any luck, they might just shoot me. Follow for the next chapter.